Hallo, Bosbokkie inkoming?
What is happening?
Kan jy my hoor?
What are you guys
Ja.
saying? You gotta translate this for me.
Kom in, hallo, Bosbok, kom in.
Hallo, Bosbokkie inkoming?
Nommer asseblief.
Ja, dude.
Can you hear and see me after all my IT
Yeah,
issues?
yeah, we can. Can you see us?
You coming through as clear as the British weather.
I was going to say it's clear as fuck, but I'm only allowed to swear once in the episode, and I just did, so there you go.
You used up your
I used up my quota.
you used up your token, but I think
Yeah.
Leicester's frozen.
Indeed he has. Well, I don't know what do I do. Do I?
He's like unfreezing himself.
Okay. Well,
the
while
moment.
he's trying to unfreeze himself,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and unfreeze myself.
What's happening?
Okay. Let's do it. Oh, it's Weekend Craic. It's been a while. Yeah, we skipped 2 weeks, dude.
Did we skip
Skip
2
two,
weeks,
we skipped
or
2
did you skip 1 week?
No, it was 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
What's happening? What's happening, ladies and gentlemen? It's your favorite.
Favorite what? Oh, jeez, Leicester's frozen. Anyway,
Okay.
it's gonna be one of those days. You know, it's actually been one of those months.
I think UK is being load shedded at the moment.
Yeah, maybe what's the right word for when your fiber gets load shedded? I don't know. Anyway, so while he's busy finding himself, how was your week, dude?
It's been I wouldn't rank it as high as like on the previous podcast. It's definitely 6 out of 10.
Can you remember what your rating was on the previous
Yeah,
podcast?
7. It was 7. It was
Okay,
solid
because you always
7.
go with 7. Yeah. Okay, good.
No, it's lucky number 7. You know,
Lucky number 7.
lucky number 7. So this week, you know, obviously depressing news coming from all media channels, and it's like
Yeah.
you kind of can't ignore it. It's like weighing down on you and stuff. So it's like,
Yeah. Well, tell us the story. I mean, you've got some. Are we talking about Ukraine as an example?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the main story. I mean, COVID.
That's-
What's COVID? Ukraine.
It's
World
it's
War
amazing. It's amazing.
3 coming. I don't
Hopefully
know.
not, dude.
Hopefully
Like,
not, no.
Hopefully not. Hopefully it's like it will sort itself out somehow.
Look, I mean, I don't think it's going to sort itself out. I think there has to be some very creative intervention from the rest of the world. I suppose I was happy to see that they haven't just done the, let's go in there guns blazing. You know, they've gone the economic route, some sanctions here and there.
Yeah.
Let's make it tough for the rest of the world, in terms of oil prices are going to go up. Fuel
Oil prices
gonna
is
go up.
already going up.
Yeah, I know,
Like,
but
through
the
roof.
oil price was going up already,
Yeah.
and it's been made worse by the fact that the US has said they're not going to buy any oil from Russia anymore, and that's pumped the price up again.
Yeah.
So, from your perspective, I mean, you got some skin in the game, seeing that you originally from the area.
Yeah. I do.
I mean,
do.
what can you share with us in terms of how it's affecting you personally?
Man, it's a tough one. It's obviously depressing. I think any wars are depressing. It's like I don't like any wars because, like, regardless of the war, whether it's Ukraine or the Middle East, it's generally that, like, the people that want nothing to do with the situation get hit.
Yeah.
Like the civilians and stuff like that. Obviously, the military as well. So it's a bleak situation. Like, overall, it's bleak, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've told me before, and you must just stop me if I'm sharing stuff that I shouldn't share. But
Stop.
too soon,
Stop,
dude.
stop,
Too soon.
stop now. Stop all the way ahead.
Yeah, no, you were just saying that you've got mates that you were at school with
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
on opposite sides of the conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, like how, I mean, and I mean, you still interact with these people, like on a WhatsApp group or whatever. I mean, you've got to try and stay neutral.
Telegram. Hey, man, it's like, this whole thing hasn't started on the 24th or 25th of Feb this year.
Yeah.
It started like in 2014. when was a conflict in the eastern parts of Ukraine. So there's a deep history behind it, and like deep history of animosity behind it, I guess.
Sure.
And it's like I do try to remain as neutral as possible, because it's like, in the end of the day, like nothing is solved by war, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't think.
regardless.
Yeah, I don't think
But-
there's ever been a feel-good story after a war. I mean,
No, dude, no. Like, doesn't matter whether it's lightning quick or drags out for a long time. It's like nobody actually wins. So it's like, but it gets to the point, like with the conflict in the Middle East, where it's just impossible to bring the two sides to the table to talk.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is where we're at.
Yeah, and then also, even if you do happen to get them in the same room, it's very short-lived in terms of any sort of ceasefire
Or
or
meaningful interaction.
meaningful interaction. Yeah.
neg-
And I mean,
negotiation.
I always think about. I mean,
Like, you know what's required. Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt you, but like,
Yeah, sure.
you know what's required to have peace between two conflicting parties.
what is that?
Willingness to compromise from both sides.
Yeah. Well, I suppose I've always I'm a Stephen Covey fan.
Yeah.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
Okay, I see Lester's coming and going.
He's joining us.
Oh, he's joined us. Let me see if I can just make sure that we can't hear you. You're on mute.
I've joined you with the cell phone.
Okay,
Oh,
no,
the
that's cool.
reception is brilliant.
Yeah, dude, you're it's the clearest I've ever seen you, dude.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
it's like that. It's an aha moment. Anyway, we were talking about serious stuff, and now you're making me joke about stuff.
Yeah, sorry. I'll carry on, Oleg. I was getting snippets.
Like I don't. Yeah, what was I saying? We were talking about.
You wanted to say something.
Yeah.
Stephen Covey. The
Oh, yeah,
habits of
yeah. Okay,
Highly
you got it.
effective people.
Like you were talking about compromise.
Yeah.
I think often when people have to compromise, that's a difficult thing to do because they've got to give up something that they, that's dear to them or that they feel principled about or whatever. Stephen Covey talks about a thing that is called the third alternative.
Yeah.
So in other words, you don't compromise, but you both come up with a solution that doesn't need each of you to give up something that you want to, that you want to keep or whatever. So like you find a third alternative as opposed to someone making a compromise.
Okay, I can
Yeah.
see how this could work in business, right?
Yeah.
But I can't see how this could work in politics. So to be honest with you, right? Because from a political standpoint, any sort of a third alternative that requires you to give up something that you're not willing to give up is a compromise, right?
Sure. Well, I tell you what. Let's go back to what is the cause of this conflict between Russia and Ukraine.
I think there's several structural issues, right?
Sure.
So one thing is NATO, right?
About that whole thing of.
So one thing, let's bring the main issue to the table. First thing
Yeah.
is NATO. Russia is basically demanded from the US that Ukraine written guarantee that Ukraine will never be part of NATO, and that goes in conflict with the Budapest Memorandum that NATO signed in 2008, stating that both Ukraine and Georgia can on some stage apply to
be
become
part of NATO.
members of NATO. So that's the main issue. The sideline issue that sort of precipitated this whole thing is the conflict in the east of Ukraine.
Okay.
Do you know how the conflict in the east of Ukraine started?
No.
Take you back to 2014, 2013, end of 2013. There was a popular uprising, let's just call it that, against a former pretty corrupt president. Although, if I look at the Ukrainian history, it's hard to say who was more corrupt than who. He was a corrupt guy. His famous thing is he had a golden toilet.
A golden toilet.
Yeah. It brings a flashback from that Borat movie
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
The Last Dictator.
Mm.
Yeah, Sacha Cohen.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the guy got ousted. He ran away to Russia. But you got to remember that, like, he was elected by everyone, right? By the entire country. So the process that was put in place to elect a new government in interim excluded two eastern regions, which is Donetsk and Lugansk. And the reason why I excluded is when they saw this thing happening, it says, well, actually, we don't agree with what's going on, and we would like a great autonomy in our regions, right? The central Ukrainian interim government said, no, that's not happening, and then we're gonna basically rip you off the knuckles by force.
Yeah.
They sent in the army that clashed with the local militia. The Ukrainian army made good progress until Russian forces got involved in a very clandestine way. Ukrainian army got a beating, got pushed back. Local militia controlled the area, but for the last 8 years, there's been skirmishes, artillery skirmishes, which caused basically both human and military loss of life.
Mm.
In a nutshell.
Sure. Yeah. And that's creating a bigger issue. Now that's, I mean, what's the, like, so Russia invading Ukraine, is that the fact that there was this threat that they were going to join NATO, or they were applied to join NATO? Is that the...
It's a twofold threat. So
Yeah.
number one, joining NATO. Number two, having a country that's aggressive in terms of both its military and overall politics to Russia.
Yeah.
And you got to remember that the Soviet Union is a patchwork. So like when the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of ethnic Russian people ended up staying in countries like Lithuania or
Yeah.
countries like Ukraine. Ukraine, out of all the countries, has the largest ethnic Russian population. I think it's about 40 to 45%. And it's regionally split. So, like, the southern part of Ukraine and the eastern part of Ukraine is where most of the ethnic Russian people are living. And the central and the western part of Ukraine is predominantly, Ukrainian.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, so Ukraine was part of the USSR back then, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, so when you talk about Ukrainian people, I mean, have they always, even though they were part of USSR, did they always see themselves as different to the Russian people?
No. So the Western Ukraine has a complicated history over the last 3 centuries.
Okay.
So, like the town that I was born in, I think at the turn of the century, it fell under Austro-Hungarian Empire, so it was called Lemberg, and prior to that, it basically belonged to Poland.
Okay.
Prior to that, yeah, and when did it become? There was an interim Ukrainian government formed after the end of the First World War, but it was very, very short-lived, like within a year.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that region has a lot of
So it's
a lot
changed
of
hands.
complex history.
Yeah.
It changed
so it's
hands
changed
many times.
Many times.
Yeah.
But I mean, like as a person growing up in Ukraine and under USSR and so on, how did you what did you identify with? Did you identify with Russian? Did you with
So what I was hoping that's what's going to happen. Like when I was growing up, I was hoping that because the two regions, right? Well, let's just say the two ethnic majorities in the country have very different history and have very different heroes, right? And sometimes those heroes from one side are the villains on the other side, right?
Sure.
So it's a very similar process that like what South Africa went through in 1994. You have to have a reconciliation process where like people, politicians, everyone sits down, they unpack the history and they unpack the way forward. How are we going to move forward? you know. And South Africa is an ideal case because South Africa has, you know, at least 11 to 12 major ethnic groups, you know.
Yeah.
You know, very different cultures, very different, you know, makeup and stuff like that. I mean, if they could make it work, Ukraine should definitely
Yeah,
be
to
able
make
to.
it work. Yeah.
But there needs to be a willingness to sit down at the table and have that reconciliation process and be willing to sort of charter the path forward.
Sure. And I mean, what do you think is like now from Russia's point of view at this point in time? I mean, what do you think Putin's, I mean, what outcome is he looking for? Is he looking to control Ukraine in the sense that they can't join NATO, or, I mean, like for him, what's his concern about them joining NATO? Because, I mean, there are other countries that are around, aren't there other countries that are bordering Russia that are already part of NATO? What's his concern?
Strategically, right? Strategically. And I'm obviously not military expert. Like strategically, that would push NATO directly against Russian borders.
Sure.
So at the moment, even like with all the really quite up against Russian borders because Belarus is a buffer. Ukraine is a buffer. But once Ukraine is no longer a buffer, you know, that becomes unacceptable, I presume, to great powers.
Yeah.
If I can give you a comparison, so I'm sure you guys heard about the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yep.
Do you know why it was a crisis?
Because Russia was
Soviet Union.
Soviet Union
Yeah.
was pulling into Cuba.
No, they were not just pulling into Cuba. They were putting strategic ICBMs in Cuba.
Yeah.
Do you know how far Cuba is away from Miami?
But yeah, you could probably throw a stone.
It's about 80 kilometers.
Yeah.
Which means any defensive measures and capabilities you may have, you know, there are none and void if you have a hypersonic ICBM sitting 80 kilometers from you. That basically means that your reaction time is like 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you understand what?
Yeah, no, I understand. But I mean, you know, has the world not moved on from?
Not really.
You know, that time. Have we not realized? Okay, well, you know, there are better ways to sort out problems than, you know, putting out your gun.
I think, you know, like from the Russian Federation perspective, it's like the messages were sent out over the last 2 years with the invasion of Iraq, with the invasion of Libya, with the invasion of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And these are pretty much baseless invasions, or at the whim.
Yeah.
You know?
So I mean, so what are you saying? You're saying that Russia's sitting there looking at America, pulling into areas that it shouldn't be pulling into.
That's number one. Number two.
Saying, well, you know, they could do that to any of the bordering countries. You know, countries bordering Russia, as an example.
No, why not even Russia?
No, well, I'm just saying that you're saying that Russia's seeing what's happening. The Americans pull into Iraq, they pull into Afghanistan, they pull into Libya. You know, they're getting rid of the, you know, the leaders of those countries. Are you saying that Russia's sitting back and looking at that and going, okay, well, you know, what's to stop America doing that to us, as an example?
Yeah.
Or to a country that's...
So I think the key message is, it's like, if NATO and United States obviously perceives Russia as a threat and as an enemy in the military sense, right? It's like, you have to wonder, you know, it's like, they're out to get us, right?
Yeah.
You know, because if they're not, Russia could easily apply to NATO and become part of NATO, right? And then the whole thing becomes a moot point.
Yeah, true.
But
True.
Russia applied to NATO.
And they were turned down or something.
And they were turned down.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it does raise lots of questions.
So imagine yourself, like, for example's sake, you're an American leadership, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, China starts deploying ICBMs in Mexico-New border, what would be your response?
Yeah, it's like a
No, I'm not talking about starts deploying. They're thinking about deploying ICBMs
Yeah.
in Mexico, and Mexican government is giving them permission. What do you think would happen?
Yeah, no, the Americans would not be happy about that.
No, but like I'm pretty sure they wouldn't. But what do you think would happen?
I don't know. I suppose the Americans would pull into Mexico.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the Mexicans would be so be like, hey, what the hell, man? You told us to build a wall. You told us to pay for the bloody wall, and now you're climbing over the bloody wall. What's wrong with you? Thought you guys didn't want anything to do with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, shame. Anyway, Lester, so nice to have you with us. At one stage, I thought you were frozen again. So what are your 2 cents? What are your 2 cents on the European crisis at the moment?
I mean, you're in Europe. You are closer in terms of the skin in the game than we are.
It's a horrid state of affairs there, and I can't see the solution. I don't know how to end this. I don't know what they need to do. I mean, short of it just burning itself out, but it's just going to get worse.
So, I mean, what do you think? If Russia takes over control of Ukraine, do you think the rest of the world just says, "Oh, okay, there's nothing we can
We
do,"
did for Crimea,
and walk away? Yeah.
we didn't bat an eyelid for Crimea. So yeah, but then when does this end? Because that if the whole of Ukraine is annexed, the Russian border then gets closer to Europe. So then Putin's back in the same position where his neighbor is
NATO.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, look, I mean, see, I don't know enough about this whole thing, and I don't spend enough time to understand and to have an opinion and to say, oh, okay, I can see this is where it could go, or this is where it could go. And that's not that I don't care. It's just that, I don't know, I just can't bring myself to throw myself into the politics behind this whole thing. I definitely am well aware of sort of the refugees trying to make it out of Ukraine into Poland. You know, this whole corridor that Russia said that they could, that they would, that they could establish, and then the other day they started bombing it. Obviously I'm aware of that, and I don't agree with that. But in terms of the politics, the reason for it, what's currently going on from a political point of view, and what the end looks like, I have no idea. And no opinion on it either. And not because I don't care, but just, I just don't, and maybe it's naive of me, I just don't understand. Like, have we not learned that wars do not work? There are no winners in the war.
Yeah, it's not. No, because even since the Second World War, there's been wars constantly ever since.
Yeah.
Not on a global scale. And this is the problem in this one. It has the potential to go global.
Yeah.
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 And that's even more scary.
Well, I suppose, I mean, how would Ukraine feel if the rest of the world said, okay, well, it's not our problem, cheers. You and Russia, you sort yourselves out.
But this is what's happening.
That's kind of happening already.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like, to the extent that the other countries in the world don't even impose sanctions on Russia. Like, they did absolutely nothing.
But that's exactly what's happening.
No, but I mean, the America and all that have pushed sanctions onto Russia, haven't they?
Which South American countries put sanctions on Russia?
Not South American. I said American.
Yeah, but I'm asking which South American countries put
I don't know.
Russia? Which
no, well,
Asian
they can't
countries?
because they're part of BRICS, right?
No, it's just Brazil. But like,
Brazil,
which Asian countries put sanctions on Russia? Which African countries put sanctions
No,
on Russia?
none of them.
Exactly.
No, but what I'm saying, if the like the big players, like the ones that could cause it to become something bigger than it is, like it to become a proper war, it's NATO and America and those kind of
Look.
guys that would pull in there.
Once
What
that
if
happens,
they-
it's game over, dude, for everyone.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, how would Ukraine feel if those people did nothing? Absolutely nothing. Like UK, the rest of Europe, North America. I mean, they've imposed sanctions. What if they hadn't done that? I mean, how? Like, I can't. Like, I will say, I don't agree with America getting involved in all this shit over all the, Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever.
But have we imposed sanctions on them?
Who? South Africa.
No, like anyone.
They have, haven't they?
For what?
Well, they're not buying any oil from them. They're not buying
No, I'm talking about has anyone imposed any sanctions on US for invading
on the
Iraq?
US. No.
Why?
I don't know.
How would Iraqis feel?
Dude, I don't know.
So,
But
so,
No,
the,
but
so
hang on. There's slight differences here. It's all, and this goes back to half the problem. What's the point of the United Nations? Security Council was there and invented to make sure this shit didn't happen again. Sorry, I'm swearing already.
you guys are using your quota,
Yeah.
but you can't.
So
you can't,
yeah,
Leslie,
for me, it's like
you can't solve the problem once the nation that's involved in waging a war is a permanent member of the UN Security Council. Because
But this is my point, though. It's the Security Council has all these powers in it, and if anyone's going to break the rules, it's going to be some member of the Security Council. So what's the point of the Security Council? They'll never come to that decision of unanimously, yeah, we're going to support you with that. We're going to gather troops under the UN flag and sort all this out. It can't happen. So what's the point of the UN?
Anyway.
Well,
Look, there's a lot going here. The civilian migration, the atrocities that are happening there. This isn't going to go away, and there's a lot of support back in Russia itself who are not behind Putin for this. They just don't see it being as big a threat as what Putin makes it out to be. And they've got their propaganda.
Okay, here I disagree with you. Right? And that's because I have kept close in touch with some like friends and acquaintances in Russia, and like everyone, and they don't know each other, right? And everyone's saying is this crisis is rallying Russian population behind the government. And I'm not talking about these guys don't work obviously in the security cluster or the army or anything. I just asked them, like, I had a chats with them during the week via WhatsApp and Telegram. I was like, so how's it affecting? It's like, does this like make your friends and your circle of friends like see it differently? No, it's like they're all saying that this is actually rallying the Russian people, and I'm not talking about just the Russians, right? I'm talking about people across different Russian regions around the government. So it actually has the opposite effect.
No, not saying that at all. The propaganda machine is in full swing here, probably on all sides. So it's hard to tell.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I just look at, there's about, what do they estimate? About 40,000 trained military people from around the world converging on the Ukraine to support the fight on the ground. And yes, the UK has had a lot of AWOL soldiers, but there's people coming from all over the world, including former Russian states, to support the Ukrainians.
Okay,
So
but can I ask you, is throwing more bodies into this pile, because they can't win this war, even if you throw like 200,000 trained soldiers from all over the world, unless you have 100% air superiority and superiority on the ground. Guys inside an apartment block with AK or sniper rifle, they do not matter in this war. This is not the type of war.
No, there's a lot more armaments. There's a lot more armaments that is going into Ukraine from Europe.
Okay, so like, is Europe sending planes to Ukraine?
No, okay, I'll get your point, and I agree that you need
let's
that air
just go
control.
over it. Let's just go over it. No, Lester, just 1 second. Is Europe sending planes to Ukraine? No. Okay, is Europe sending tanks?
Yes,
Tanks to Ukraine.
they're not sending it to you. They're sending it to the border.
Well, the thing is, it's like
There's the donation of the hardware, and the vehicles and all of that. So if you want to go and fetch it at the border, you can have it. But they're not flying into the airspace. They're not defending that airspace. So between the two countries, whoever's got the superior air force is going to control that airspace, and therefore they have an upper arm in the fight.
Okay, so you know how this fight is going to get decided, because this is essentially like giant armies with giant mechanized divisions, playing a strategic positional warfare, right? This is not like a bunch of guys doing hit and run and then basically regrouping and doing another hit and run. Ukraine does not have pretty much a lot of armored divisions left, right? Whatever armored division left, they cannot basically they cannot fight an equal warfare with the Russian armored divisions that are in the country, right? Number one, they can't, even without the air superiority, you can't fight that fight and win, right? So the second thing is there's 100% air superiority, there's 100% gear superiority, there's cruise missiles being used, right? There's heavy bombers being used. It's like you just cannot win that fight. Like even if you throw there 500,000 people with the AKs, it's like you're just throwing more bodies into this.
Yeah, cannon fodder.
And
this is not going to be a short thing. This is going to drag on and on. It's going to be messy, and it's going to leave Ukraine in a pretty flat state at the end, whatever it looks like. It's not going to be good for Ukraine either way.
It's not. Well, look, the question is in what state would Ukraine exist after this? In what state?
It's difficult to say.
Yeah.
Definitely not what it was before.
So let's establish it's like Ukrainian armed forces and all volunteers, they cannot win that fight because currently they're fighting against like 1/5 of the Russian forces, right? That's 200,000 people. Ukrainian army size was, I'm not sure if it still is, was also about 200,000. So it's par on par, right? With the exception of air superiority. Including all the volunteers, let's say there's 400,000, right? People fighting on Ukrainian side, which they obviously don't have the superiority in armored divisions, and they don't have the superiority in long-range artillery, and they don't have superiority in the air, right? So what's going to happen is they're most likely going to fortify or dug themselves in World War I style in like a ball neck area and hold it. What Russian army is going to do is they're going to pound that area from all available artillery and then go in and just see who's left alive, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's going to be painfully slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I just don't see an easy end. The infrastructure is going to be squashed. I am concerned about the nuclear power stations that keep getting hits. Even Chernobyl, there's no electricity to the sites. All the fans and all the cooling systems require electricity to cool the old reactor. Yeah, that's the worrying part here. I mean, the other one that was targeted this week is 4 times the size of Chernobyl.
Yeah.
If that breaks, I mean, it is different technology in the processing of that uranium, but if that breaks, the whole of Europe is suddenly affected.
Yeah.
But let's turn this on its head. Okay, so from what you're saying, the superiority and the military superiority lies with Putin. Russia takes over Ukraine at some point. Great. So does that mean the war's over? Because the side effects of all this is there's not a lot of support in the world for Russia. The sanctions that have been imposed are hurting. They're not disabling. They're going to hurt, and they're probably going to be there for some time. People are not going to forgive and forget here.
I'm not sure what the end goal is. Like, to start off with, I'm not sure whether the goal is to basically go in and destroy all the infrastructure and basically level Ukraine, wreck Ukraine, right, from the onset, and then basically leave it. I'm not sure what the goal is. I honestly don't. I don't know. I don't know what the end goal is. I don't know what the end game is.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a massive no man's land. If they waste the country, it becomes a massive no man's land.
Jeez, terrible, man. Terrible. Anyway.
But I mean, how does Russia survive as a country? Forget the Ukraine part. At the end of all this, Russia's going to be... Putin's going to go through war crime tribunals with his generals. The financial constraints will still be there.
You can't.
The value of the ruble is just going to never recover.
Sorry, Lester. The International War Crimes Tribunal is only designed for the countries that signed up for that. US and Russia and China are not part of that statute. So even if for example's sake, even if the judges pass a decision in absentia, it's not enforceable. Just like it's not enforceable when they're found against the U.S. soldiers that bombed the hospital in Afghanistan. What happened was Trump put the judges under sanctions, which means the European bank accounts got frozen, right? And then this whole thing got resolved. So in essence, the whole International War Crimes Tribunal is designed for weaker nations to wrap them around the knuckle. It's a good mechanism, but unfortunately, if the major players don't play ball, it's the same thing as
Russia survive? How does Russia get back its financial strength?
I'm not sure.
Because I don't see that happening.
I'm not sure. But I think what this is going to cause, it's going to cause fragmentation of financial system. Number one. Number two, it's going to cause the fragmentation of the energy market. That's number two. Russia, I think the calculus is Russia can still work for the rest of the world. They can still work with Brazil. They can still work with India. They can still work with China. They can still work with South Korea. They can still work with all the African countries. So, like, what happens next, right? Are we creating the world with two camps, right?
US and Europe and then the rest.
Yeah. Are we well, like, is this going to create the world with two different financial systems and two different, basically, political outlooks? What's going to happen? I mean, the sanctions is a two-way street. It will level European economy. It will absolutely level. I mean, if you think of what's going to happen with the German manufacturing sector, once the price of oil and gas hits above $200 a barrel, it's not going to be pretty. And that market's going to be replaced by China like this.
Yeah, it's true. Well, and the problem is that the rest of us, when I say the rest of us, I'm like you were saying, Brazil, South Africa, African countries, we're like stuck in the middle because we're trying to keep both camps happy, but we can't keep both camps happy.
Well, it's going to be interesting what is actually going to happen, because...
Does it mean that the US and the EU starts putting pressure on countries like South Africa, and Russia's doing the same thing? I mean, Russia's already warned the South African government and said, hey, don't forget that we helped you out in apartheid era.
And calling in those chips, huh?
Yeah, exactly. They're calling in some of those favors.
They're calling in those chips.
Yeah, because when they were going to come out of
the barrel.
Sorry?
They're just scraping the barrel. That was so long ago.
No, I know. But I mean, it's like, you're like, don't forget we helped you during apartheid.
Nudge, nudge. Yeah.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more. And I mean, China as well. I mean, we can't turn our back on China.
Out of all this, China probably benefits the most. To solidify themselves.
But I mean, okay, this is going off topic a little bit. But I mean, there's always been this problem that was created by greed, unfortunately, that like the US decided to outsource their manufacturing of all their goods to China. And what's happened now is they're like caught between a rock and a hard place, because China is producing all these products for like next to nothing. These guys, guys in the US are making a shitload of money. Now all of a sudden you're getting this sort of divide, because if China's not going to impose sanctions on Russia or anything like that, they're not going to. I mean, how does that affect the relationship between China and the US, and what does that do to manufacturing? Because does that mean that the US now has to now start manufacturing locally again, and what does that do to the profit margins that these guys have been used to over all these years when they've been manufacturing stuff outside of the US?
I think in terms of like critical stuff, like that stuff hasn't been replaced. Like most of the military tech, like it's obviously not made in China, right?
Yeah, no,
Right.
no, but I'm talking about anything and everything else.
Yeah.
I can't even put a percentage to it, but I would say the majority of manufacturing, obviously excluding military stuff, is manufactured in China.
And that's globally, dude.
That's globally, but I'm saying I'm talking about the.
I don't think that's just US. I think it's Europe. I think it's like
Yeah.
Africa. It's definitely Asia.
But no, I understand that. But what I'm saying is that the US depend. I'm using the US because the US is like the biggest person that's going to be
Biggest
against person. The biggest country that's going to be against Russia. And if China is on the Russian side of the equation,
I think China is on the Chinese side of the equation.
yeah, I know, but they're definitely not on America's side, and they're not. And even if they're not on Russia's side, but they don't side with America, what does what do the Americans do? Are they going to continue to do business with China? I mean, if they say to China, "Hey, listen, you need to get involved and stand up against Russia," I mean, what's China going to do? They're going to tell them to take a hike. And then what does the US do? Does the US go, well, because like you're saying, I mean, there are only certain countries that are going to impose sanctions on Russia. The rest of the people don't want to get involved in the thing, so they're not going to
make moves.
They're not going to say to Russia, "Hey, listen, we're not going to buy this stuff." Like, I mean, look at fertilizer as an example. I mean, Russia's the largest fertilizer producer for the world. I mean, if you are going to now impose sanctions on Russia and you're not going to buy fertilizer from them, what now? Like, I mean, that the ripple effect of that is your whole agricultural sector goes for a ball of shit. So what?
You know, my take is,
Yeah.
okay, Russia is not a peer competitor to US. Not in economic sense, not by a long margin, right?
Yeah.
The only peer competitor to the United States is China. China's economy is growing at $3 trillion a year.
Sure.
It's a lot, dude. It is a lot.
But what I'm saying is,
And China controls the Asian market, and you know that geographically, like if you look at all the Southeast Asian nations, they all essentially like take their orders and align their foreign policy towards what China does, with the exception of South Korea, most likely Taiwan, although that relationship is very complicated. I don't even know where to start. And then Japan.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But I mean, I don't think it's good for the rest of us that this little skirmish is happening in.
It's bad for everyone.
It's bad for everyone.
Look at the oil price.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at the oil price.
You look how far South Africa is away from this conflict, and it's affecting the man on the street there. Yeah.
If we reach, like you guys can quote me on this one, but if we break through like $140 a barrel, it's going to be the next financial crisis, like global one. It's
and I don't think we've actually recovered properly from the last one, which is like 2008.
14 years ago,
14 years ago. I think that we're like just making it at the moment. I think something like this is going to, I mean, like the fuel price. I mean, like
40 rand a liter, dude.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking that, I mean, just think about the impact of that
On food, on
everything,
everything. Escom.
Jeez, dude. Exactly. I mean, they're trying to run flipping diesel generators. How they there's just
This is not going to end well, man.
it's untenable. It's like you just can't. It's not. It's like, what do you do? It's impossible. I mean, maybe the benefit out of that kind of thing, but it's going to be hard, is that renewable energy, the whole transformation to renewable energies will be fast-tracked because...
We can't.
Well, I'm not saying... you're talking about South Africa.
No, I'm talking about the world. We don't have enough copper and nickel. Did you see what happened to the nickel price this week? 80%. 80% increase.
Yeah.
The copper prices are also beating records. The iron ore
I think we're going to have
prices-
to dismantle the Statue of Liberty, you know, recover some copper there. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, it's not great. Not great. We'll watch this space with.
I had a chat with some of academics working in the like mineral resource sector and exploration, and they basically the consensus is plus minus we need 3 times more copper than what we have in reserves today. So like the copper we need to go renewables of world we haven't even found yet.
Oh, shit. Lovely. Yeah.
Same with nickel, same with nickel, same with platinum, same with rare earths. You know,
metals, yeah.
do you know who basically has got the largest nickel reserves in the world?
I don't know.
Russia. Do you know who's got the largest rare earth reserves in the
Russia.
world? China.
Oh, China. Okay, well, there you go.
So the problem with like oil, gas, and mineral reserves, they're not equally distributed through the world.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like a country like Saudi Arabia, right, has 30% of the world's oil reserves.
Yeah, I feel like we're playing a game of Rise of Nations. You know,
I feel like it's a Game of Thrones. We're watching through a
Thrones.
rerun of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, dude. Can we go to Mars now, please? Hey. Yeah. Anyway, on the note of Eskom, I have to warn you
We're
that
being load shedded
at 2:00.
on the
So
dot.
we've got 10 minutes, if we're lucky, or maybe if we're lucky, 15 minutes before the power goes off. So we're gonna have to wrap it up pretty shortly. So a quick one, Formula One. We wanted to talk about Formula One.
Starts next week.
Two things, or 3 things. First thing, we were talking about Fantasy League, or amongst the 3 of us. I mean, have we given it any more thought? What's the plan there? What are we going to do?
I think we should commit for next week and come up with our forecast.
Yeah, you guys still don't want to go the official Fantasy League route with Formula One, and we create a team ourselves,
I think that's the easier way.
Yeah.
Is that
to be
the
honest.
easier way?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have a look into it. I'll create a team, whatever. I'll invite you guys, and we can join on there, and let's do it. And every week or after every race or whatever, we'll update.
We'll
where
do a
we're at.
league review.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll do a league review. That's one. Secondly, Drive to Survive dropped yesterday.
I saw.
Right, I'm already 4 episodes in.
Really? Wow.
Yep. And my daughter's like, Dad, are you busy? Come, let's sit down and we need to watch. Okay. Cool. No worries. And the third thing is I've been watching the testing at Barcelona.
Yeah.
Have you seen this whole thing with this porpoising effect on the cars?
I heard something about it.
Yeah. So certain cars down the straight or whatever, it oscillates. So it's like, it looks like the driver's headbanging in the cockpit.
You serious?
Yeah. I don't know how they've got to find a way to sort it out before next weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do that in a full-on race.
It'll
Wouldn't
be
finish.
so tiring, dude. Yeah. So it's this whole thing, as I understand what it is, it's this whole new ground effect thing that they've got with the cars is that what it does is when it sucks down, it gets to a certain point where it releases the downforce. So then it's constantly doing that. So you get this bumping down the road. And also it doesn't help that some of the tracks are bumpy anyway, in addition to that. So I'm not too sure how this is going to play out. So it's going to be interesting. It looks like the Ferraris have got their design right. Looks like Merc, they've gone a different route to the rest of the guys, and it looks like they've got it right again.
I think the Mercedes car looks amazing, dude.
Yeah. So they don't have side pods like the rest of the teams. They've got a different design. So yeah, it's very interesting to see what how the first sort of race is going to pan out. Yeah. Right.
Fastest this morning, Sergio Perez in a Red Bull.
Nice.
Gang Yu Zhu, Alfa Romeo, second fastest.
Oh, wow. The new Chinese dude.
Pierre Gasly, Alfa Tauri, third fastest.
Just quickly on that, and going back to the Russia thing, you see what happened with Mazepin, eh?
Yeah.
And the Ural Kali, who's the largest fertilizer company in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who were the sponsors of the team. I mean, I feel so sorry for the team because like their main sponsors now gone. It's the second
It's
time
happening
it's
in so in the Premier League football in the UK.
Yeah, what's happening with Chelsea, man?
Chelsea is owned by Abramovich, and the UK put sanctions on him and pretty disabled his financial
But
system.
Isn't Abramovich a Jewish name?
Yeah.
But he's a Russian Jew.
So he owns the Chelsea Football Club, and when Russia moved into Ukraine that first day, he put the club up for sale. So, and he was very clever about this.
Oh wow!
I'm selling it. Any proceeds go to Chelsea's charities. I don't want anything for it.
Oh wow!
I mean, the value of the club has massively grown since he bought it 15 odd years ago, whenever it was.
Yeah.
But it's got worse now. So since the sanctions are coming on Abramovich, they can no longer sell the club.
Oh no.
They can no longer sell players, buy in players, transfer players. They can't sell season tickets. The whole club's bank account systems are frozen. So the only people who can go to games are people with season tickets. They are restricted as to how much they can spend on maintaining things. If something breaks, they probably can't fix it in the stadium.
But I mean,
they're limited to how much they can spend.
Surely, if he's going to sell it, and he says the proceeds will go to charity.
Yeah.
Surely they should lift that restriction.
I think there's more to play out in this.
Okay.
We'll see over the coming week.
Yeah.
But the latest thing is the shirt sponsor, 3 is a mobile network here. They've said, no, we're pulling our sponsorship. We want our logo off your shirts.
Sure.
But the thing is, they're not allowed to spend money on new shirts.
So what do they do? Like duct tape?
Which is why I'm saying something has to give here.
Duct tape? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Tipex.
yeah.
Tipex.
So they should be playing this weekend. Let's see what they're wearing.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that's the extent. Let's see where this goes.
Wow.
But it's hitting here as well.
Shit. Yeah, dude. I mean, this is just such a stuff. I mean, and we've just only just come out of this whole COVID thing and whatever. People just need a bit of a break. Well, COVID, what's COVID? What's COVID?
Are we out of COVID, by the way, guys?
Well, not
in the
last
news.
week, but I don't think it was this past week, but the week before, South Africa had the first day where there was no COVID-related deaths.
You serious?
Yeah.
So,
but it's changed again. Sorry?
In 2 years.
Yeah, in 2 years.
Wow.
But I mean, they're really preparing. I heard the other day they're really preparing for the next one.
For the 5th wave.
Well, they say there will be a 5th wave, but they say obviously it's not going to be bad as the one. But they're already talking about the next coronavirus.
Well,
What do you mean,
Corona
like-
22.
Like a new, completely new, not COVID, but something else.
So not a new mutation of
No,
COVID. It's
no,
going
no.
to be just
New-
different
Completely
virus.
different virus, yeah. Oh,
Man,
we'll
that's
see.
scary, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
tired.
it's already featuring. There's all this war in the Ukraine. COVID doesn't make the news, but we're in the UK. We're still having 60,000 new infections a day.
You serious?
100 odd people are dying a day still,
Crazy.
but it's under control. We have no restrictions. We haven't had for many weeks.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, I wonder
get
how many
sick,
of
you get sick.
those people that are getting infected, are they reinfections, or they first-time infections, or what's the story there?
well, most of the people that are dying are those who haven't been vaccinated.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's
Interesting
hectic.
stuff, man.
So it's still hitting UK. I mean, 60,000 new cases a day. I mean, that's hectic.
We do a lot of testing though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's still
Anyway.
hectic. I mean, it's like, well, it's good that
We've
you.
got the same numbers as France. I'm just looking at the stats now. France is about the same number.
It's good that you're doing a lot of testing. I mean, that basically allows you to know the real extent of the situation, right? But it's like, is it because everything's now open and nobody's wearing masks?
I would imagine so.
There's
People are
no,
going
yeah,
back to the office,
we can't,
they're
we
using-
can't,
using public transport, no masks. What's the story there?
we can't stop it now.
Yeah.
We've committed to this other way of living.
This approach,
Lester, but your experience, like you've been to work this week, right? Or you've used the public transport, like this week or in the past 2 weeks. Are people wearing masks on the public transport or not really?
Some. It's more becoming the minority now,
Okay.
and it's the same in the shops. It's the same everywhere.
Subway?
Yeah, the same.
Okay.
It's not mandatory. It's just recommended.
Yeah.
So the Transport for London, for the London Underground services and the buses, have said, look, there's a lot of crowding here. It is potential high risk. So
Yeah.
please protect yourselves. It's up to the individual. And if you're becoming the only person wearing a mask and people are going, oh, look, they're still wearing a mask. You're going to stop wearing a mask.
Yeah, that's
No,
true.
it's been
It's
like
true.
that for some weeks. I was intrigued, though, with all this going on in Ukraine is still reporting their stats on the COVID front.
Crazy.
I mean, 36 people died of
Corona.
Chechnya, sorry.
Yeah.
45 people died of COVID in Ukraine yesterday. 3,000 new cases of COVID in Ukraine yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's still going, still
Excuse me,
testing
I wonder
results.
what the COVID protocol is at the border with Poland.
Well, Russia had 60,000 yesterday and 645 new deaths.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy. Well, guys, listen, it's almost 2:00.
Do you think it's going to be automatic in terms of when the power goes off? Like we're just going to get cut?
Who, us?
Yeah.
Yeah, we will just get cut.
Okay, Lester, I'm going to use this opportunity to say it's been a pleasure, man.
It's been
good
a
to see you.
blast.
It's good.
It's
you
been
should-
real, man.
You should use
Been
this.
real.
You should use this camera going forward because I mean the picture quality is really good.
Yeah, it's just a pity about the sound.
It's the
Leicester.
sound shit. It's the sound
Unless they're
rubbish.
broadcasting from the toilet.
It's not that bad.
Oh, is
No, it's not that
is
bad.
that what it sounds like?
It's
No,
not that bad. No.
No, it is a bit. It's not as good as as the other way, but
Yeah.
the picture quality is much better than the.
I'm gonna move my office. I'm gonna go to another spot in the room because it's the overhead lights that change the shading
I
and the
see.
filter, so
Okay,
it comes through light
Yeah.
and dark.
it's auto contrast or whatever you want to call it.
All right, guys, keep well.
Okay, it's
Peace.
been fun.
Peace to everyone.
Cheers, yeah. Let
Peace
there
out,
be
brothers.
peace in the world, baby.
Peace in the world. I'm for
Peace in
world
the
peace.
world. Yeah,
Like,
we'll all make love, not war.
absolutely.
I haven't got time for that.
Yeah, me neither. What? Love or war?
Both.
That was predictable. Okay, guys. Check you next
Cheers.
time.